lead story last month in The Economist, no, not banking or sanctions against Russia. It was helicopter parenting of all things. Yes, that's how big of an issue this has become. And joining us now to talk about it is author and parenting expert Kay Wyma. This is something I see all the time. I live up in the suburbs. I always see parents hovering over their kids. What's a helicopter parent?
I think a helicopter parent is one that hovers and races in to save, and they've even changed the term now to snowplow parent because it's gotten so bad that people are going in and literally moving the way for them.
Oh, wow.
And it is, I think it's amazing that that would be the lead story in The Economist, that that's how our nation would be described right now, and I think it is. It's one of those problems that people think if that's happening in the United States, because that's not really what this country was built on, you know. This country was built on people looking at a mountain as an opportunity, not as an obstacle, and they never went towards these words, you're owed or you deserve. It was like, this is a place where you have the opportunity to do it. And I think that's what's got people concerned, is that we're sending out into the world people that are looking back to home to make sure that their parents come in and do it for them.
There's definitely a sense of entitlement, you know, when you've got these shows where kids are having $200,000, 16 birthday parties and stuff like that. So is it that entitlement and that inability to work for something that is eventually going to cause us some issues?
It seems like it, because there's words that are being thrown around that are bad words, like narcissism, and they're calling the millennial generation Gen Me. And it was on the cover of Time magazine. You know, are we raising a generation of narcissists? And narcissism is a terrible thing, because all it does is it focuses on you, and it's like grooming everybody to look at themselves instead of possibly somebody else and maybe what they can do. And I think it's, you know, it's based on fear. We're afraid that our kids might fail, or we're afraid they might be left out, or they'll fall behind. And so everybody hires the college tutor to do their essays for them, because, you know, your kid's competing against somebody that's having the same thing. Or you're racing in and doing, you know, checking all their homework before they get into school.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but every other
I'm not quite there yet, but you are,
so,
right?
Yeah, I think that I'm the snowplower and the helicopter combination, but I have a 14-year-old daughter. And not to say, you know, the sons are different, but it's my princess. And I'm kind of like the text message, social media. I mean, how do you deal with that? Because I have a hard time. It's like when I want to look at that text message, your phone, it's like, oh, Dad, you can't look at it. Yeah. But I'm like, I want to be on top of it.
Well, and I think social media is one of the things that has really propelled this. It's like there's a perfect storm. You've got it coming from everywhere. And kids look to social media because they want to belong. It's like if they get enough likes or they get enough shares, then they're okay. And it's one of those things, we've got all this great stuff in our home to help them know that they actually are needed and belong. And I think that's one of the things, as I sat there realizing, as I looked around my house, and every bed was unmade, and everything was left, you know, whoever tried on whatever, it was on the floor like a trail, you know, that they had left.
I hear that.
I mean, it's unbelievable. And I'm like, what in the world? What am I doing? And I really had a moment going, do they know how to cook? Do they know how to clean? Do they know how to do their laundry? Do they, you know, and at the end of the list, I was like, no, I don't think they know how to do any of that. And I had gone ahead of them, just like we all do, because it saves time. We don't have to deal with the whining. I mean, it's all this stuff and these great reasons why we do it and why we race in to protect them, because we love them.
So how do you find that balance? Because like Tony was saying, you know, you actually need to be aware of what your kiddos are doing on social media these days. How do you find that balance between sort of making sure they're safe and hovering or snow plowing?
It's so hard. And I have found with mine, I think I really have every personality. We have 5 kids. Our oldest is about to be 18, and then it's 16, 14, 12, and then a little 7-year-old. But I have found that the more that they are defined not by the world around them, but actually who they are, the more it turns down the volume on that stuff, because they really look to that stuff to make them okay. And I've watched as they have found themselves that they actually are needed, they're a part of our team, and that they have great worth in who they are, they look to that less, which I think is interesting. And I've watched the volume be turned down on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, all of that without me saying it, and that fine line of stepping in and going, what are you doing?
Right.
How, you know, who is this? Who are you talking to? Do you know? And it's been interesting, but I have watched these kids, as we have put real responsibility on their plates, actually have confidence and independence that I would be tempted to look to a trainer to do for them, or a coach, or all these things that we see, and we race towards that because that's the answer. And so much of it is just right in our home. And I think it's like going back to the 50s.
Yeah.
It's like, why are we talking about this? Because it's the way life used to be.
Well, you know, I'm hard with consequences. You know, I'm this tough guy, and then, okay, well, this is what you're going to do, and then they'll ask me a day later, and I don't follow through. So
Right.
I've always had a problem with consequences. How do you handle the consequence? You just stay with it, that way they know?
Just so you know, regular over here. I mean, I'm pathetic too. I really am. At the end of the day, I'm like, please let them have all this stuff in their backpack, because I could get lost in all of it. But I think it's loving them. It's like, how are you loving them? And I'll tell my kids, like, you know, I'm the mean mom. You're so mean. Nobody does this. And I think I'm mean because I love you.
Right.
Because guess what? I believe in you. Because kids don't think that they can do all that they can do. I don't either. And I think we're afraid that they can't do it. They can do so much more than they think that they can, or that we think they can. They like doing it. And it promotes in them this other, without like telling them, focus on somebody else, go
Right.
do community service. You know, we've made community service about ourselves. So we
Right.
have something to check off on our resume, you know?
Right.
And it's like, it does it naturally. And I don't know. I
Kids
think
like
parenting
discipline.
is hard.
Don't kids,
they
don't they want
really
you to
love
take the
it.
lead?
They
They
need
like
it.
the
You take the phone
boundaries.
away, my gosh, man, you think that they were
And
cut
you're
one of
the
their
enemy.
arms off or
It's
something.
the truth. Weathering the
It's
wine
like, oh
storm
my gosh,
is just
you're
a
the worst
nightmare.
parent. I hate my parents.
I am
You're
not ready
not
for
in
this.
those
Well,
years?
no, I've got a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, and my
I'll
6-year-old
tell-
still
we'll tell you all
worships
about it,
the
Dawn.
ground I walk on.
Yeah,
So-
thank goodness for
But
those
I
little
heard something
ones.
recently, and I had to take a step back and go, that makes so much sense. Kids coming up to you, Mommy, I'm bored. And so next, okay, well, let's do this, let's do that. I read in this article, it said, well, let them be bored. What's wrong with being
Absolutely.
bored? Because then they have to go and try and find something to keep themselves busy.
Yeah.
But usually I'm so quick to go, okay, let's do this. Let's go do this.
Yeah, and I think it's a societal trend to race in and fix, to hover, to do it all for them, you know, to have these ultra busy schedules. And there's so much now on mindfulness and resting your mind and what that does, and it actually promotes creativity. And all the activity stifles it, which is so fascinating. And again, it's like, let's go back to the 50s, you know, where kids really did leave and they went and played for hours and then they came home at
Went
the end of the day.
outside and did something.
Yeah, and they failed because people forget that the road to success is paved with a lot of hard work and failure.
Absolutely.
And so even my daughter would love to be your next segment over there cooking, because the Food Network is her favorite thing, because she's learned how to cook.
She can be a culinary. She
Well,
can
it's
be-
interesting. And so they'll watch the Food Network and they'll be like, I want to be like the Pioneer Woman. Well, they don't know that the Pioneer Woman got there because she worked and worked and worked and did and did and did and did, or Harry Potter, whoever, you know.
She just sees a show.
Yes,
and
and it's like, and that's what all the kids think, and it's like, no, that road, and you both know that. We all do. It was paved with a lot that you look back and go, I didn't know that failure was going to help me here, and I'm glad that I kept going instead of looking to somebody else to do it for me.
Right, tons of sacrifice and, like you said, hard work, and really failure is where you learn a lot of your lessons and
Yes,
getting
but
back
it's
up.
hard as a parent.
Well, kids
Well,
don't
it's
like
brutal.
failure. If they, it's a great example. You have kids that participate in activities of sports. They're not the best player. They don't want to do it. I'm like, that's the part you got to go. You got to go through failure. You got to face adversity. But they want it too easy. They don't want to grind it out. That's kind of my experience as a parent.
It's interesting, and you'll have parents that'll race in and move their kids from team to team to make sure they're on the right team or they're with the best coach, and there goes so much of that hand-holding instead of just letting them weather through it.
Right.
Oh, so many great tips, you guys. Well, Kay has a blog called MOAT that stands for Mothers of Adolescents and Teens, and she also has a book. It's called Cleaning House, a Mom's 12-Month Experiment to Rid Her Home of Youth Entitlement. I may start giving that out as gifts. Okay, moving on. With so many restaurants to choose from during DFW Restaurant Week, there's something for everyone, and we're cooking up one of the specials that's on the Dallas Chop House menu when we return.